Good evening, and thank you all so much for coming out on a Monday night in Dundee to come and listen to me. I've been working quite hard on my presentation, but it's actually part of a development I've been doing. So I've been working for an organisation volunteering called Turn Your Life Around. That's I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but it's delivered in the across the schools in Edinburgh. So I go into just primary schools or secondary schools, and I'll talk about my life, talk about how I turn my life around, and then we do a piece of work. So this presentation is a bit from that, a bit from science, because I've learned so much from Dr. Suzanne Zedek over the years, and I can't thank her enough for influencing so much of my thinking and understanding around adverse childhood experience, therefore about my life. And also I deliver a training programme called Raising Children with Confidence. And that's another City of Edinburgh course that's really, really important. And if you've not heard of it, I really do recommend you look into it because it's amazing. So let's get started. We've got half an hour of me just chatting about going through a few slides. Then we'll do some question and answers. I'm deaf, so I find it easier if people write any just thoughts, anything, questions, anything, and then we can gather them up and then we can go through them in the last half hour. So it just helps if I can't hear someone's quiet speaking, but obviously if you want to have a chat with me, then I'm here to chat too. So this is my childhood view. So these are the stairs that I used to sit in because I was too scared to go home because my mum and dad would be fighting because they'd be drunk. They're the stairs that I'd be too scared to go to school to because I didn't feel safe there either. This is a view I had of the balcony looking out across a scheme in the outskirts of Glasgow that is basically not had one penny put into it in 50 years since I was born there, because I went back recently and had a look. So there's a lot going on in those different pictures. If we think about the stairs that I sat in, I spent like most of my childhood sitting there. I've got memories of sitting there when I was 3, when I was 5, when I was a teenager, and actually running around outside the building was a way of me building up my resilience. You look at what is called pair of ACEs, and you think about adverse community environments, you know, and I feel that the area that I was brought up in, yeah, that ticks a lot off. And I don't know if people are familiar with living in a community where it's Catholics and Protestants, but I was brought up where my dad was in the Orange Walk. I went to Protestant school. I wasn't allowed to go about with Catholics. The school I went to in primary school had a fence that separated the Protestant school from the Catholic school, and I knew the fights. I mean, I know I can't believe that actually happened, but that is what it was like in growing up in the area I lived in. So there's a lot of adverse community environments there, along with my adverse childhood experiences. But actually, the freedom that I had from roaming about with all the dogs and all the different people, it actually allowed me to really negotiate with myself and to develop my own way of doing things. And it may have been challenging, and I may have fallen a lot, but I look back on those elements of my childhood and think that actually poverty is a cause and a consequence of ACE. I really quite like that, how Highburn says that, because I don't think poverty in itself is an ACE. I know that some people do. I don't personally think it does, because I think that you can be poor but have a deep and loving connection with your child, and that actually will buffer you right through life, where you can have plenty of money but no love. But here's me when I'm 3. Obviously the challenge of being little is that you can't really remember it. I quite like this quote from a neuroscientist, Douglas Watt. It's unrememberable, but it's unforgettable. And of course that's where all of Suzanne's work comes in, because I know from all the research I've read that by 18 months your brain has developed more than it will ever do in the rest of your life. By 3, you've put in either that safety valve that you've got where you feel secure in yourself or not. And I think that those first 3 years of life, I might not remember words and I might not remember what happened, but I can remember how I felt. And I think sometimes it's the feelings that you carry throughout your life that really stay with you. I think that your brain is very, very malleable at that time in life, but also that makes it vulnerable. And so those first few years of life, I found when I started to learn about attachment, and I think to the relationship that I had with my parents, certainly sure that that I had developed an insecure attachment with my mum. We didn't feel able to really connect with each other right through my whole life. So of course, in retrospect, that's kind of where I see it all beginning. And I think that's where in my life I developed what I now understand is my own internal working model. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that, it's basically, it's a way that it happens between like 12 and 18 months. You build either a safe base with your parent or caregiver where you know that no matter what, they'll co-regulate you, you'll feel safe in their arms and you'll feel safe looking into their eyes, and that's how you can then see yourself as being loved, being lovable, being wanted and being cherished. That in turn develops into how you see others, and that in turn creates your view of the world. And I think that's really important because it makes sense to me that I didn't have a secure attachment to my parents, because part of my memories of going into primary 1, for example, is I didn't feel I could go to that teacher and ask her for help. And I think that it's because I was scared of adults, because I had developed in an environment that was so chaotic and so angry, wasn't able to look to adults to immediately, intrinsically understand that they were there to help me. So I think that's why I probably struggled at primary school, but I was very, very quiet. That's where it makes sense to me that my childhood was probably developed through what I understand to be called authoritarian parenting, because all those things kind of make sense to me. I was brought up in an environment where my parents would mostly make demands but not explain things. It was a case of you have to do what I'm telling you to, and I'm not going to explain it. And if you don't do that, you're going to get hit, you're going to get shouted at, you're not going to be able to allow to be made sense of. You can't make sense of things if you're little, and that's what message you're being told by your main caregiver. So what ultimately ends up happening with an authoritarian parenting is all those biological things happen, which I now still feel today, many, many years later. Through those kind of relationships, which were my first enduring relationships, I didn't ever feel safe in my own home, and I think that that's where it comes through that biological adrenaline and cortisol, all those things that make you want to make sure that you're not in control, so you're going to have to either get out that door or you're going to have to fight that. And that's where Suzanne talks about your saber-toothed tigers and your teddy bears, and in my home it was saber-toothed tigers and there weren't any teddy bears. When someone's not cared for you, you find it really hard to mirror caring for yourself, and I think that's something that's really important, that we learn self-care from those around us that care for us. It's about mirror neurons, it's about seeing seeing what you get and getting it back, and if what's normal for you is either a still face, if you want to talk about that experiment, an angry face, an angry voice, a lifted hand, all those things. Basically, they might even not always be happening, but actually it's worse to have the fear of them than it is to actually happen itself. And I think that that's something that you kind of carry around with you if you haven't felt cared for and loved in your home when you're little. So basically, if we have not been cared for, then we find self-care to be challenging, and that's what I've found, is I found self-care to be challenging, and that's where all the research about adult childhood experiences has helped me so much. I'm going to talk about being a teenager, which, given all that, wow, I know. Basically, I'm trying to paint a picture because I didn't feel safe at home and I didn't feel safe in school. I was scared of adults. But what I did develop was really, really great friendships. Like, my friends were everything to me, and that's where my buffers came in. When I was a teenager, because I didn't learn how to self-soothe, because I hadn't been co-regulated in my kind of calm myself down when you're upset and you need a cuddle and you need to calm down, and because I didn't get that, I was expected just to go to my bedroom to calm down, or just basically to calm down myself somehow or other, but not to expect to be helped to calm down. And of course that's because my parents didn't know how to, so I'm not blaming them, but the fact is that because I didn't have that, by the time I reached teenage years, I wasn't able to self-soothe, and that was probably a lot of the reason why I drank so much, took lots of drugs, self-harmed, and really, I didn't really like myself very much as a teenager. So I feel that having my friends and having, I'll talk about my protective factors, but it was just so important I had my friends during that time, because now I've learned about the science of ACEs and how that all happens. That's something that I think it's been probably the most important thing that I've learned from seeing a resilience film, and the journey that I've been on since then has been what it means, how you can connect all the dots. It's connected all my dots for me in a way that nothing ever has before, and I'm just so incredibly grateful for that opportunity. I can't believe how lucky I've been to be able to understand all of that, and also to feel that I'm not alone, because I think this is a Welsh report from 2017. It's when I first did the ACE score, which I know is a hot topic, and I'm not saying that everyone should do an ACE score, but when I did one with a group of people, what it made me feel was I wasn't alone. There was lots of other people that were the same, that I felt were the same as me, in that they may have had tough times during their life, but they were there on that day, showing up and being the best person they could be. And I think really that's all we can do in our lives, is to try and do that with whatever we have. This is where the light bulb moment went on for me. I had never heard of toxic stress before. It turns out it's quite a new thing that the Dr. Jack Shawcross, is it? Talks about, and it makes such sense, because everyone needs stress. Before you go into that exam, if you don't have stress, you're not going to do as well as you can. If you don't have stress, you're not going to be able to learn to walk. If you don't have stress, you're not going to be able to do all the things that keep us learning and moving and being our best self. But what I understood from the resilience film and the ACEs work was that if you don't have those buffers and you have that cortisol and adrenaline with nowhere to go because you're freaking out because the door went or the phone went and you've got nowhere to go and no way to calm down, then inevitably, you're going to turn to health-harming behaviours, because what else are you going to do? You're only human, and you're going to try and help yourself as best you can, because it hurts. It hurts so much when you have. I've read a book which I know I go on about a lot. The Body Keeps the Score, Bert Vanderkolk, and I've never read a better book describing how the body feels. Is suffering from toxic stress, honestly, and it's like the world do anything to stop that. And so these are the things that I did, and it's been a journey for me, but learning why I did them, it gives you a bit of a window of light, because you don't just think you're weak or you're stupid or you're just wasting your life. You're basically doing as best you can with your life, with what you've got, and that's, I think, is what a really important positive message from everything that's to do with the resilience film and the average childhood experiences work and all the research that's going on, is that people are doing the best that they can, and if we can understand that in ourselves, then I think we can see it in others as well, because we're only mirroring what we've managed to get to that point. So, really important to say that the protective factors that I had in my childhood, like we had loads of dogs. I don't even do that anymore, have that anymore, but basically where I was brought up in the scheme in Spring Hall, you had kind of dogs just roaming around, and I'd bring all these dogs into my bedroom, all these cats, I'd smuggle up under my jacket, and I mean basically I could spend like all day with an animal, because they're just so loving and they're so amazing, and I think that gave me a really great calming influence when I was growing up. I think back to those times when I was petting the dog that was lived down the street called Arthur, and I was really happy then, and that's, I mean, dogs are amazing basically, and outdoors I was always much happier outdoors. I think when you're walking along and looking up at the sky, and then you feel a bit of freedom, and as a teenager, the friendships I got through music and writing, I used to love writing. I'd write all these, oh my god, these awful poems. I'd write all the lyrics, all these songs that I loved, and that led me to reading poetry, and that was an escape. That was it's a thing that I hold very, very close to now. I mean, it's just, I feel so lucky, and in the scheme I was in, there was really nothing there, but there was a tiny wee library next to the bookies and the newsagents and the chippy, and that was a library where I could go down to and find poetry that I'd heard about from like singers and all these like really like depressing bands like Joy Division. I was really like, oh my god, I need to read William Blake, because like Toya Wilcox wrote a song about him, and so basically that's how I got into reading, was through music, and it was just so brilliant. Basically I left school as soon as I could, and then I got pregnant, and that was the best thing that could ever happen to me. I'd had such a long childhood being an adult, really. I look back and think, I mean, I was putting my parents to bed drunk, and I was kind of sorting them out with stuff, and it was like I was way beyond being a child. So by the time I had Joe, I was really like ready to have him, basically. It was like, you know, I don't believe in God, but it was literally the perfect thing that could have happened, because I probably would have been dead if it hadn't been for Joe. He literally saved my life, and sadly his dad was an alcoholic, his dad's dad was an alcoholic. You know, alcoholism was, pretty popular in the area that I was growing up in, and so when I got offered a council house in Castlemilk, which is basically the only place I knew where all the dealers were, I was like, right, I'm not going to live there. I'm going to want something different for Joe. And friends again, those wee connections of friends. My two friends had moved through to Edinburgh, so when I was pregnant, I found a bedsit in Edinburgh, and I moved through there, and I not looked at my notes at all. Why did I bother? So I had really brilliant support from Viewforth Early Years Centre. They were amazing. They're like the equivalent of an English Sure Start Centre. They were so good, totally non-judgmental. They helped me take care of Joe, and it was through the support of them, and in the bedsit there was a cafe underneath that I used to do a couple of hours work, and I got to know someone there, and they're like, wow, because they were a student from England, somewhere in England. They're like, wow, you've got a wee boy, oh, he's so lovely, and we've got a flat across at Marchmont. So again, knows Edinburgh, Marchmont's really posh, and we've got a flat, we've got a room. Do you want to come to stay in the flat? And so me and Joe moved into the flat, and that's where I got to know all these amazing students that they were all at Edinburgh Uni, and they all really took me in and were just again friends. They were just the nicest friends ever. So it was through them that I thought I believed that I could go to uni. So needless to say, I did English and Scottish literature. I did a master's English Scottish literature. It wasn't like studying, because it was like reading books that I liked and then writing them out. So it was like, I know it's like, why did you do an arts degree? What good is that? But it was really good fun. So it was amazing, and they were also amazing at Edinburgh Uni because there weren't many single parents, and they were just so kind there and so accommodating, and I made amazing friends, but also I was able to study William Blake. And while I was in a tutorial for William Blake, the tutor was like, Michelle, can you wait after the tutorial? And of course, my anxiety just went, oh my god, what was I wrong? And it turned out I really got William Blake. He wanted to tell me I should pursue studying because you really understand him, and I was showing real promise with that. I just couldn't believe my ears. But it was like somebody told me when I was reading William Blake in that library at 13, listening to Toy Wilcox, like that was going to happen at Edinburgh Uni. I wouldn't have believed them. Again, through friendships I did, which is like terrible because of Brexit. I think it's been stopped, but I took part in the Erasmus exchange because of a friend. They offered me a flat in Madrid. So me and Joe lived in Madrid for a year, and I did my third year at uni. And during that time it was quite hard because my dad died, but I was stuck at it, and I stayed in Madrid for a year. And Joe went on to do really, really well at Spanish when he went to high school, and then he wanted to do a degree in Hispanic Studies. So that's literally because he stayed in Madrid for a year, because he picked up Spanish in like a month, and I just about learned that Ola didn't start with an H when you say it, and it was literally, I was so bad at Spanish, but he was absolutely amazing, so he helped me so much. So what I found, really, if I plot my life, which, it's a very interesting thing to do, is that it's been relationships that have it's been relationships basically that have been answered every single step of the way for me. It's been relationships. It's been open to those relationships as well, and that's very, very difficult when you find it hard to trust people. But you just kind of have to plough on, and basically just do it. I think, and that's maybe what I found from playing about in the streets in Spring Hall when I was wee was I just kind of got on with it and did it, and it was that resilience that I built through negotiating all those years ago that maybe helped me to get to doing a degree. And then what's obviously very important is that I'm not my mum. So that's always been a worry for me with drinking alcohol, and it's only since joining all the dots with the ACEs research and the resilience film and that I've been able to understand why I drank to help me sleep at night, because I couldn't sleep because I was too scared, and why I'd wake up in the morning and hate myself. And it was that cycle of kind of a bit of self-loathing, because everything can be great, but it's like an iceberg, isn't it? Well, you can kind of see a bit, but there's lots going on under the surface. The awareness that I've gained in this past year and a half, 2 years, it's helped me to address why I self-soothe with alcohol, and that understanding has really helped me to stop. So that's one thing that is amazing, given my mum drank all the time, and there was quart bottle of whiskey scattered all over my bedroom, and I thought because I drank wine at night it wasn't really drinking because it's a middle class way of drinking, but actually your liver doesn't really know the difference. So my sons are really proud of that, so I'm really proud of that. Also, when my mum watched Joe for a while, not just for a couple of hours here and there, and one time she hit him, and I was really upset by that, because I didn't use smacking, if you want to call it. It's basically hitting. I didn't use that with Joe because I didn't want Joe to have to understand that his mum would hit him to get him to understand something. So I had stopped her from seeing him, but I wrote her a letter explaining why, and unfortunately she wasn't brave enough or didn't really want to understand that, so Joe didn't see her again for a long time. So that's another thing that I think was really important. This is from the wonderful Deepest Well, Nadine Burke-Harris, and it's weird because kind of individually these things are good, but see, if a doctor gave you that as a prescription and actually did it in a multidisciplinary way, I think if you were to centre of it, I think it would really, really help your mental health well-being. I know it's really helped mine. I've totally engaged with all of these things. It's I always do meditation was all right and stuff, but obviously you don't want to eat fatty food, and exercise and sleep and mental health and health relationship. But now, with the ACEs knowledge that I have, it's kind of taken on a different meaning. I just understand it more. I understand the depth of it. So that's kind of how I'm trying to live my life now. I run 10Ks, which a couple of years ago I would never thought possible. I do the Headspace app every day, which is great. It's so good. I totally recommend it. What I thought would be interesting to think about towards the end of my talk is what is an ACE-informed approach, because I think it's quite an interesting. It's this website, it's 7030. It's got really, really good handouts and stuff, and we want to see an ACE-informed approach. What does that mean, an ACE-informed approach, and is it at all possible? I'm a very positive person, but I think we've got an awful long way to go before we're anywhere near it. Just today, for example, and I know that I'm really sensitive. I was going to a doctor to talk to the doctor because my anxiety has been quite bad recently, and I managed that with the support of the doctor, as well as all the other things, the 6 ingredients. And I went to the machine that you go to check in, where you put your date of birth, and then you check in and you go in. So I went in and it didn't work. I thought I must have done it wrong, and it didn't work again. So immediately I nearly had a panic attack, and I was like, oh my god, what have I done? I've done something wrong. I haven't got an appointment. And it turned out that they deliberately did that. So I'd go to the counter, so they'd give me a sheet to fill in because the GP I was seeing was only a trainee, and so I was like, my cortisol levels were like, oh my god, it was just like, I was so stressed about that. And so I went into the waiting room and I kind of, okay, I've not done anything wrong, it's okay, it's just the way that they use to get you to go to the counter. And I told the doctor, and he's like, oh, I'm really sorry, I hadn't thought of that. It's like, how could you not think of that? People come in all the time with doctors with anxiety, and or that could be a trigger for all sorts. It's like, basically, it's nobody talked that through. It's like nobody actually did it to think, how will it make a patient feel if they're feeling vulnerable coming into our clinic. And that is such a teeny wee thing, a tiny, tiny wee thing. So just, that was just today. I've got this video that I'd really like everybody to watch. If I think we've got enough time. It's only 8 minutes. It's very, very interesting for anyone that's not seen it, and I really, really relate to the man in it. And it's NHS Scotland, and the idea is it's going to be rolled out to everybody to support a trauma-informed workforce. So it's for everybody in the whole of Scotland. So hopefully this will work, because everything seems to be working so far. Seems to be.
Whenever Mum went away, he would come into my room. He said I made him do it, and that it meant he loved me. It always made me feel powerless, ashamed.
I never knew when an argument would turn into a fight. I was always scared, always on edge, always had to be ready to defend myself.
My late husband was very controlling, always put me down, told me what to wear or cook. He'd get angry if I didn't do things right. I had no choice or control. It made me feel useless. I had no confidence in the end.
So I zoned out, pretended it wasn't happening. It's so difficult to trust people now. I just freeze and float away in my head when I feel powerless.
Now I just get angry a lot, feel like I want to fight. Sometimes I worry I'm just like him.
I find it difficult to do things myself, and I get really nervous when I have to talk to new people. I avoid them when I can.
What we went through was traumatic because we were harmed, physically, emotionally, and felt like we were in real danger.
Traumatic experiences can be things that happen once, like a serious accident or assault.
Or it can be where traumatic things keep happening, like physical or sexual childhood abuse, or domestic abuse, or relationships where you can't be yourself, where you're put down or bullied.
It can make you feel powerless, trapped or betrayed. The sense of confusion, shame or fear can be overwhelming, especially if there is no one you feel able to tell. Even after it's over, it's harder to get on with life and feel safe.
Trauma is more common than most people think. Almost 1 in 5 adults has experienced physical or sexual abuse in their childhood.
and more than a quarter of all women have experienced domestic abuse.
Some people recover after traumatic events. Some people aren't affected as much. Having good, safe, supportive relationships with other people can really help. But lots of people continue to be affected by trauma, sometimes long after it happened.
For most of us, traumatic or adverse childhood experiences like these affect our body's response to stress, affecting our physical health as well as our mental health. The impact of trauma can also make it harder for us to learn and to realise our full potential.
One of the most worrying things about the experience of trauma is that it can make us avoid people and places, even if they are there to help, like doctors, teachers, social workers, carers, colleges,
Councils, community centres, employers, advisors. Because most trauma experiences happen in relationships with other people, we can find it difficult to trust people or feel safe. And sometimes the way we react to help ourselves feel safe pushes people away and makes it even harder to get the help we need.
It's like our brains learn survival tricks to get us through the trauma at the time, like priming us for danger.
Making us run away.
shutting down when we feel upset.
It might look like we have a short fuse, like we're unfriendly, or we're just a bit absent.
Anything, however small, that reminds us of that trauma can set off our own unique trauma response to protect ourselves, making us avoid the people and places that we need the most. Like you. But there are things you can do to help me trust you enough so I feel safe and I don't shut down or avoid you. You can offer me a different relationship that doesn't remind me of the one I had when I was a kid. One where I feel safe, I feel empowered, and I have choice and control over what happens to me. One where we work together and I can trust you. This is called being trauma-informed in the way you work.
Being trauma-informed means thinking about what will make me feel safe. It might mean offering me choice over the sex of the person offering me care or support, especially if it involves intimate care or examinations.
Unfortunately, your usual care worker Heather's off sick. We'll be sending someone else instead. Do you have any preferences about who comes instead?
Well, I'd feel more comfortable with someone I've met before. Most importantly, I'd like a woman.
Well, how about June? She's worked with us for 3 years. If there's anything you'd like her to do that Heather normally does, just ask.
Trauma-informed means empowering me to have control and take an active role in what happens to me.
We know some people don't like coming to the dentist, so is there anything that you're worried about or scared of? I can tell you each step I'm doing, so there are no surprises if you'd like. If you need me to stop, how will you tell me?
Trauma-informed means helping me to trust you by being clear about what will happen, doing what you say you will do when you said you would do it.
Unfortunately, our advisors are running about 30 minutes late. I'm so sorry about that. Are you able to stay, or can we make another appointment for you?
Many of us at work will have had our own experiences of trauma in our own lives, or we might witness or hear about it in the course of our work. So the same principles apply to all of us. We all need to take care of ourselves by making sure we're safe and connected to the people and activities that matter to us. Can you think of anyone you've met or worked with recently that a trauma-informed approach would have made a difference to? Are there any trauma-informed changes you might make that could make a difference?
So if you offer me safety and choice, if you collaborate with me and empower me and help me trust you, then you will help me work with you. Even if I only meet you once, even briefly, you can give me a different kind of relationship. One where I feel valued and valuable, connected and safe.
And when that happens over and over again with everyone that I meet, I can learn that it's safe to make connections with people.
It is those connections that we all need to access life chances and reach our full potential.
It's not exactly rocket science, is it? It's literally being kind. I mean, really, a trauma-informed approach sounds so fancy, but actually, it's literally listening to somebody, not telling people, asking people, and building a connection with them. I mean, it is just, if it wasn't so upsetting, it'd be laughable, but it is quite upsetting because I totally relate to the guy, because I have been that guy at counters, and it's like, oh my gosh, it turns out that it's because of that, and that turns out it's quite common, and it's not because you just lose the head, it's because you're overwhelmed, you can't cope, and you don't know why they're doing what they're doing, and you think that whatever you've done is definitely wrong, so you immediately go in defence mode, and it's with strangers, and it's like, I was reading, I really like Bruce Perry, he says lots of interesting things, and the other day I heard him say how like the ACE score isn't actionable, but relational health is actionable, and relational health is just a really fancy word for being nice to people and building relationships with them and being kind to people and listening to them and valuing them, all the things that build empathy, build resilience, build all the things we want in our children, in our families, in our communities, and in our country. So to me, you just need to step back a bit and reflect, I think, on how we all do that, because we all do our best, but kindness sometimes isn't as easy as we make it sound. Just be kind, but that can be quite hard if you've got a lot of issues with someone, or you've got to forgive people, or but we've only got one life and we need to do the best we can with it. So kindness is definitely how I do try. Forgiveness and kindness. And connection, and so basically at the end of our lives, can we look back and count up, this is metaphorical by the way, as well as actual, count up how many hands we have held, and which makes me think about, I couldn't hold my mum's hand when she reached out at my dad's funeral because I couldn't do it. Why couldn't I do that? It was because of all those things I talked to you about. I find that really, really sad, but I couldn't do it. And my mum was dying, the nurses told us that all night she was asking just for someone to hold her hand, which I thought was really surprising, but really sad, because we're all human again. And so it's about reflecting on that, like what stops us from holding our own hands and being our own cheerleader, and what leads us to hold each other's hands. And I think that's probably love and connection. So don't worry, you don't all have to hold hands. It sounds a bit evangelical, but what I'm trying to say is that we should just, it's sometimes harder to be there for people if you haven't built up those connections over times when the opportunity was there. So that leads me to why I'm here today, which is because of Suzanne, because when she wrote this on Twitter, I was like, it so resonated with me, because that's literally the journey that I feel I've been on with ACEs, is, I know what's happened to me, but it's making sense of that, and making sense at the core of healing, and that's something that you can't just think, it happens inside you, and I think you just basically have to have all the how you say, to grow a plant, you just have to all the right environment, and you need to water it, and you need the earth and all that, but it's basically just it's just creating the opportunities. Maybe with me personally, it's through not drinking, it's through doing mindfulness, it's through listening to my children, it's through learning from my colleagues, it's through listening to my husband. It's we all have different ways of doing that, but at the core of healing, you have to make sense of things, and I think that gives a shift. It gives a shift of consciousness for me to understanding and connecting those dots of my life, and then it just brings me to the end, which is that's kind of my main thing is health relationships. And that's mine. So thanks very much for listening to me.